A voice cracks through the night. Raw, broken, unforgettable. Why would you take my sister from us? No answer. Only silence. What happened in the darkness of a Dallas parking lot would leave a family shattered, a community stunned, and investigators scrambling for answers. She was a woman who gave everything she had. A mother, a caregiver, a daughter who never walked away from responsibility. And yet, within minutes, her life was stolen in a way no one could have imagined. Her car, a handprint on the window, a sudden disturbance caught on camera. And then, silence. When the truth finally came into focus, it was more devastating than anyone could have prepared for. But the question still lingers. Why was she killed? And what secrets were hiding in plain sight all along?
Welcome to Twisted Crimes Files, where the darkest truths come to light. Stay with us for chilling stories you won't forget, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a case.
Dallas, Texas. A sprawling city alive with energy, commerce, and culture. But beneath its skyline, the streets carry another truth. A truth written in rising crime statistics and a haunting number of domestic violence cases that end in bloodshed. On October 25, 2023, police responded to the 1600 block of Murdoch Road, not far from Lincoln Memorial Cemetery. It was just after 7 in the morning when the call came in. Officers arrived to find a woman's body. She had been shot in the chest. The victim was quickly identified, Dishaye Stevenson, age 35. She wasn't just another statistic. She was a mother raising a teenage daughter, a daughter herself, caring for her partially paralyzed mother, and a community figure known for showing up at events, at family gatherings, at moments when others needed her strength. This was not the death of a nameless stranger. It was the unraveling of an entire family's world. The shock spread quickly. Neighbors whispered. Family members wept. And investigators began piecing together what had happened in the hours before she was found lifeless. The central question pressed on everyone's heart and mind. How could a woman who lived for love meet her end in such violence? Before she became a headline, before her name was tied to tragedy, Dishaye Stevenson was simply known as Shay to those who loved her most. Born in the late 1980s, she grew up in Dallas, surrounded by family who described her as vibrant, dependable, and endlessly giving. She wasn't the loudest in the room, but she had a way of making everyone feel seen. Her laughter could soften tension. Her determination could steady chaos. As she grew into adulthood, her role in the family became clear. Dishai was the one people leaned on. She became the rock for her younger siblings, the protector for her teenage daughter, and the caregiver for her mother after a devastating stroke left her partially paralyzed. Friends recall her as the kind of woman who would show up for anyone at any time. She was the first to bring food when someone was sick, the first to sit up late on the phone, listening without judgment, the first to remind others that family came before everything else. Even in the simple things, her love shone through. Cooking dinner for her daughter after long days, driving her mother to appointments, refusing to let her feel like a burden, celebrating milestones, big or small, with photos, laughter, and a quiet pride. Dishai wasn't perfect, but she was present. And presence, to her family, meant everything. It is this portrait of a woman who carried others through storms that makes the way her story ended all the more devastating. Because when you understand who she was in life, the silence left by her death becomes unbearable. In the story of Dishaye's life, one chapter stood out with both hope and heartbreak, her marriage to Michael Smith. When Dishaye first connected with Michael, those close to her noticed the way she leaned into love. She believed in giving people the best parts of herself. And with Michael, she poured in patience, trust, and forgiveness, even when the road grew uneven. At first, the relationship seemed like a new beginning. Photos showed them smiling at family gatherings, standing together at community events. There were moments of public affection, gestures that suggested loyalty and partnership. But privately, the picture was more complicated. Her sister, Jasmine, would later recall a lot of red flags. Signs of tension, moments that didn't sit right. Whispers of control, of jealousy, of a bond that looked steady on the surface but carried fractures beneath. Still, Dishai chose to stay. She carried the weight of loyalty like a vow. She did what so many women do. She believed that love, with enough sacrifice, could heal what was broken. Those who knew her say she did everything in her power to show Michael she loved him, no matter what. But the devotion she offered, the consistency she gave, it would never be enough to shield her from what was coming. Their marriage became a storm that looked calm to outsiders. But storms don't stay hidden forever. Eventually, cracks become breaking points. Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. For most people in Dallas, it was just another fall day. But for Dishaye Stevenson, the hours ticked toward a fate no one could have imagined. That morning, she moved through her routine like she always did. Her teenage daughter headed off to school, books in hand, expecting her mom would be waiting at home later, just as she always had. Her mother, still recovering from a stroke that had changed her life, relied on Dishaye's steady presence. She needed her daughter's care, her voice, her patience. For Dishai, this wasn't a burden. It was her life. Her family was her rhythm. Every call she answered, every errand she ran, every small detail mattered. She was the glue. By afternoon, nothing seemed unusual. But as the evening crept in, the rhythm broke. At 8 p.m., her daughter tried calling. No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. This wasn't like her mother. Dishai answered the phone always. Even if she was busy, even if she was tired, she would text back, "I'll call you in a minute." But this time, silence. As the night grew darker, worry set in. Her daughter's concerns spread to Jasmine, Dishaye's sister. She knew Dishaye's habits. She knew her reliability. And she knew when something was wrong. Jasmine called. Nothing. She sent a message. No reply. The unease settled heavy in her chest. That's when she called cousin Nita. Together, they decided they couldn't just sit and wait. They had to find her. Using location tracking, they followed the trail of Dishaye's car. It led them to the Pleasant Village apartments, where Michael Smith's father lived. The complex sat in eerie stillness, street lights buzzing, shadows stretching across rows of parked cars. And then they saw it. Dishaye's vehicle, parked, quiet, abandoned. On the driver's side window, a massive handprint smeared across the glass. Jasmine froze. Nita stepped closer, studying the mark like an investigator in training. To anyone else, it might have looked like just a hand pressed against a window. But to Nita, a criminal justice student, it was a red flag. Something violent had happened here. It wasn't just a touch. It was a struggle captured in the faint outline of skin and pressure. The air felt heavier. Their breaths quickened. And then, the rumor reached them. Word was spreading through the neighborhood that a woman had been shot, just minutes away from where they stood. Neither wanted to believe it. Not Dishai, not their Shay, but with dread gripping their bodies, they drove toward the flashing lights. Every turn of the wheel felt longer than the last. And when they pulled up to the crime scene, police tape stretched, officers clustered. The truth struck them like a blow they would never recover from. It was her. Their search was over, and their lives would never be the same. The flashing lights cut through the early morning air on Murdoch Road, a place where families usually drive past without a second thought, now sealed off with yellow tape. Silence broken only by radios crackling and officers' footsteps crunching against gravel. There, near the edge of the road, lay the body of a woman. She had been shot in the chest. Her life ended with brutal finality. Her purse was nearby. One sandal missing. No sign of a robbery. No indication of a random attack. This was personal. Police began their work with precision. Shell casings collected. Photos taken from every angle. Measurements, diagrams, and notes scribbled into reports. Every detail mattered because every detail told a story. Detectives quickly connected the dots. Surveillance footage from the Pleasant Village apartments revealed a chilling sequence. 2 cars entered the lot. Dishaye's and Michael Smith's. She left her vehicle and stepped into his. For several minutes, the car sat still. Shadows moved inside, faint, restless. A disturbance was clear. Then the car left the lot. Only one life would survive that drive. When investigators located Smith's vehicle in his own driveway, the truth was impossible to ignore. Through the window, in plain sight, was blood pooled across the front seat. Inside, a single bullet casing rested where the driver's body should have been, and tucked near the pedals, a lone sandal, matching the one Dishai had been wearing when her body was found. The car told the story Michael Smith would not, and yet he was nowhere to be found. Detectives followed his trail through Dallas, searching homes, knocking on doors. The tension mounted with every hour. Would he run? Would he vanish into the streets? They found him not at home, not in hiding, but seated in a barbershop chair. Calm, still, as if the night before had never happened. But the evidence surrounding him told another story, one that prosecutors would soon argue was undeniable. From a moment Michael Smith was taken into custody, detectives knew the work had only begun. A single arrest was not enough. They needed evidence that could hold in court, testimony that could stand unshaken, and a motive that explained the unthinkable. Inside Smith's residence, investigators executed their search warrant. What they uncovered painted a chilling picture. Multiple firearms stored throughout the home. A bullet casing in his car. Blood that matched Dishaye's DNA. Piece by piece, a narrative emerged. This was not a random crime, but a deliberate act. Yet the question lingered. Why? Family members had hinted at red flags. Moments when loyalty turned into control, when love blurred into fear. Those closest to Dishai believed she was preparing for a change. The Texas Council on Family Violence would later report that Dishai had been considering divorce. If true, that possibility cast a dark shadow over motive. For prosecutors, theories multiplied. Was this a confrontation about the future of their marriage? Was jealousy at the center? Or did Smith view Dishaye's independence, her devotion to her daughter, her mother, her own identity, as a threat he could not control? Domestic violence experts warn that the most dangerous time for a woman is when she decides to leave. It is in that moment, when freedom feels closest, that violence often strikes hardest. Investigators traced every angle, but one reality refused to shift. Everything pointed back to Michael Smith. The blood, the casing, the timeline, the footage, and above it all, a silence from Smith himself, who offered no answers, no explanation, no glimpse of remorse. The case against him was growing. But for the Stevenson family, the evidence did not quiet the ache. Because no theory, no affidavit, no piece of paperwork could answer the one question that haunted them most. Why would the man she trusted with her life choose to take it? In the days that followed, the crime scene tape was removed, the detectives moved on, and the city's rhythm returned. But for the Stevenson family, time did not move. It stopped the moment Dishaye's life was taken. Her sister Jasmine spoke with a voice that cracked under the weight of disbelief. She described a woman who never wavered, who cared for their mother day and night, who raised her daughter with unconditional love, who never walked away no matter how heavy the burden. In her grief, Jasmine's words cut through. She did everything in her power to love him, and it still wasn't enough. Cousin Nita remembered the search, the handprint, the dread that told her something was terribly wrong. But beyond that night, she remembered laughter, late-night talks, family dinners, a cousin who never judged, only encouraged. Her absence left a hole that could not be filled. Then there was her daughter, 16 years old. Too young to lose a mother, too old not to understand what had been stolen. For her, every unanswered call that night became an echo she would carry for the rest of her life. A missing voice in graduations, birthdays, milestones yet to come. And for their mother, partially paralyzed and dependent on Dishaye's care, the loss was more than emotional. It was physical. It was daily. It was waking up every morning to the reality that the daughter who once lifted her, bathed her, fed her, was gone forever. The family gathered at vigils, holding candles against the cold wind. Friends, neighbors, and strangers came to stand beside them, speaking her name, demanding justice. Photos of Dishaye's smile glowed on posters. Flowers and balloons marked the places where she had once stood. But no vigil could bring her back. No memorial could erase the sound of her sister's question, the one that lingered even when the candles burned out. Why would you take my sister from us? When Michael Smith was led into the Dallas County Jail, shackled and silent, the wheels of justice began to turn. Prosecutors wasted no time. The charge was murder. His bond, set at $1 million, was a figure that spoke to both the severity of the crime and the danger he posed if released. Court documents revealed what investigators had already pieced together: a timeline marked by surveillance footage, blood evidence, and the haunting discovery inside his vehicle. This was the foundation of the state's case. Then came the indictment. A grand jury agreed. There was enough evidence to proceed. For the Stevenson family, it was a step forward, but it was not closure. Because indictments are not convictions, and promises of trials do not erase the ache of waiting. The Texas Council on Family Violence later noted that Dishai had been planning to divorce Michael. If true, it added a chilling layer to the narrative. Her desire to reclaim her independence may have been the trigger for the violence that ended her life. Inside the courtroom, hearings were scheduled, motions filed, testimony prepared. But outside those walls, the family carried a different reality: the slow grind of a system that often feels colder than the crime itself. Days turned into months. Holidays passed without her. Birthdays came and went, her seat at the table empty. And through it all, uncertainty gnawed at them. Would he be found guilty? Would he face decades behind bars? Or would a technicality, a loophole, a jury's doubt leave them with nothing but heartbreak and unanswered questions? Justice delayed became another form of torment, the kind where every news alert, every call from the courthouse, every knock on the door could change the trajectory of their grief. And yet, for all the legal maneuvers, one question loomed over every proceeding: what could ever balance the scales when the life taken was Dishaye's? Even today, with the case set for trial, the final chapter remains unwritten, and the silence surrounding its outcome feels as heavy as the crime itself. She was 35 years old, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a caregiver who gave her strength to others until the very end. Dishaye Stevenson lived for love, and yet that love could not protect her from the violence of the man she trusted most. Her story is not just a case file in Dallas County. It is a warning, a heartbreak, a reminder of how fragile devotion can become in the face of control and rage. We may never fully understand what drove Michael Smith to that parking lot, what words were exchanged in those final moments, or what flickered through Dishaye's mind in the seconds before the gun went off. But what we do know is this: her life mattered. Her laughter mattered. Her daughter's memories of her will always matter. And that is why her story must not be forgotten. Because this case is not just about one woman in Texas. It is about the countless women who stay, who forgive, who hope, only to discover too late that love alone cannot save them. It is about a justice system that must do more, and a community that cannot afford to look away. So tonight, we leave you with this truth. For Dishaye's daughter, for her mother, for her sister Jasmine, and for everyone who loved her, silence is not an option. Her name deserves to be spoken. Her story deserves to be shared. And you, watching right now, can help make that happen. Share this video. Leave a comment for the Stevenson family. Subscribe so more stories like Dishaye's will not vanish in the shadows. Every like, every share, every subscription is not just engagement. It is a way of keeping her memory alive and demanding justice for those who no longer have a voice.